Now let's look at a 2-period deadline. Okay? So consider a game of 2 periods. Okay, if player 2, so 2 periods means that player 1 makes an offer and then player 2 has the choice of either accepting the offer or rejecting it. And then if they reject, then if player 2 rejects, then player 2 makes an offer and then player 1 has the option of whether to accept or reject. So if player 2 rejects player 1's initial proposal, player 2 makes a counter proposal, which, if rejected by player 1, ends the game. And both get 0. So remember, each stage or each period is an alternating game. And on its own. So a 2-period game, the last period is going to be the alternating game. So player 2 makes the offer, and if player 1 accepts, then they each split the pie according to player 2's offer, but if one rejects, they both get 0. So this is what our diagram looks like. So you have player 1. Player 1 makes an offer, and their offer is a share of the piece of the pie. Okay. And then player 2 gets to decide whether to accept the offer, yes, in which case player 1 gets x1 and player 2 gets x2, or to reject the offer, to say no. And if player 2 rejects the offer, then player 2 gets to make an offer on how to split the piece of the pie, and player 2 makes an offer, and then player 1 gets to choose whether to accept the offer or reject. If he accepts the offer, then player 1 gets delta 1 y1, and player 2 gets delta 2 y2. And if he rejects, then they both get 0. So here, player 1's offer is x, and if player 2 accepts, then player 1 gets x1, player 2 gets x2. And if player 2 rejects, then player 2 makes an offer y, and then player 1 has to accept or reject, and if he accepts, then player 1 gets delta 1 y1, and player 2 gets delta 2 y2, and if he rejects, they both get 0. So y is player 2's offer, and y1 is player 1's share of player 2's offer, in player 2's offer, and delta 1 is player 1's discount factor, and y2 is player 2's share of player 2's offer, and delta 2 is player 2's discount factor. So since this is the second period, so each is going to multiply their share by the discount factor, which is a consequence of them having waited one period. Okay? So now consider a subgame following an initial proposal of player 1. Okay? So if player 1 makes an offer and they both know that this is a 2-period game, then player 2 could reject it, and then because player 2 is the last person to offer, they're probably going to offer 0-1, where player 1 gets 0 and player 2 gets 1. Right? Because player 2 knows that the game is going to end after that. Okay? So if player 2 rejects the proposal by player 1, then her payoff is going to be delta 2, which is basically delta 2, her player 2's discount factor multiplied by 1, which is what she offers herself. Right? So player 2 rejects any proposal by player 1 that's less than delta 2 and accepts any proposal accepts any proposal that's greater than delta 2. Okay? Now, and player 2 is also indifferent. Between rejecting and accepting the offer 1 minus delta 2, where player 2 will get delta 2 and player 1 would get 1 minus delta 2. Okay? So, but what's more important is that player 2 rejects any proposal that's less than delta 2 and accepts any proposal that's greater than delta 2.